Hello, YouTube. Can you hear me? I will assume that's a yes until I hear otherwise. Well, as you can see from the stream, tonight's title is Remembering Dad. 7 years ago today, I lost my father. And, you know, I'm happy. I got to know him as long as I did. I was 32 or 33, I believe, when he passed away. I know for some people that's young. I know a guy who's 64 right now, and both his parents are still alive. But for some people, that's a lot longer. Unfortunately for my mother, her mother passed away when she was a child, and her father passed away in her early 20s. He never got to see me. It was before I was born. So, you can't complain too much about the age. It's not going to be that depressing, Mr. Miles. I have a lot of good stories to share. I just wanted to get the sad parts out of the way. Commander Ironwolf, I'm just being honest. Okay, hold on. Is that somebody coming to my door? Yeah. No. Yes. Okay, guys. I will be right back. Somebody's coming in. Hold on one quick second. Okay, everybody, sorry about that. I'm back. At least he didn't get to see Discovery become a thing. Yeah. He, his favorite shows at the time, I remember watching with him. We used to watch 24 a lot, Prison Break. He'd watch Star Trek. I don't think he was the biggest Star Trek fan, but he'd watch the movies if they were on or stuff. He loved westerns. He loved older, like Bonanza and old western movies. It was funny. I was trying to save money on cable, and I was cutting back on a package because there was this channel that I was like, oh, why are we getting this? We don't need this package. The only thing, was some Westerns channel. And I asked everybody in the house, but I forgot to ask him. And he said nobody was going to miss it. So I canceled the channel with the cable company. And I don't know, it was the next day or later that day, my dad's like, is something wrong with the cable? And the channel I watch is out. And I was like, forgot to ask. And sure enough, it was a Westerns channel. Yeah, that was his thing. And I like, to this day, I love the Bonanza theme music. Um, Never got into the show as much, but I still like Westerns, especially modern Westerns, movies, and such. Thomas says his dad never got to see DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, or any movie after Star Trek 4. I'm sorry about that. Derek said his father passed away 2 years ago. He was 80 and had a full life. Well, that's good. My father was 61. 60. My father was 60. He to be honest, he didn't think he was going to live to 40. But he made it to 60. Um, it was 2011. I got sick in 2009. That first year I was sick, I mean, his life was crazy, coming back and forth to the hospital. He was never one to go to doctors or take doctors' advice too often, but he got hit pretty hard. He ended up on dialysis, and the last, I don't know, year, 8 months of his life was pretty tough. In fact, he ended up passing away in the hospital. We were both in the hospital at the same time. I was there for a lung issue, and he was getting infections. He was having complications from dialysis. We were at the same hospital, I believe on the same floor. If not, we were pretty close by. And the last time I saw him, he came to my hospital room to visit me from his hospital room, and he was walking. I mean, he was doing better than I was, but there was just something. I mean, nobody was expecting him to die at the time he saw me, but there was just this feeling there that, I don't know, we knew we could be seeing each other for the last time. It took another month. I ended up coming home, and he stayed in the hospital another month, a month and a week or so. And he hung on till just after my mom's birthday. For those of you who may believe or not believe, my mom and my sister would go visit him because I was stuck at home in a hospital bed. I literally couldn't get to visit my father. I was recovering from lung surgery. I had tubes coming out of me. The fluids were draining. Even if it was in better shape, I still wouldn't have been able to get to see him, considering the position I was in. So I was just get reports, and the day before he passed, he told my mom that he was starting to see children, little children, were coming for him. And he knew. He knew it was his time. It didn't make it easy. But life goes on. And I'd rather share some happy stories about my father. Well, when it happened, me being in a hospital bed, unable to get out, to do anything, I felt so, so useless. Um, I'm like, I can't even go comfort. I mean, yeah, my sister and my mother, they would come here. Obviously, they were living here at the time, but I couldn't go comfort my grandmother. His mother was still alive. His brother, his sister, my aunts and uncles, all my cousins. Um, I couldn't go do anything. I couldn't, I mean, but the one thing I could do, because it was one of the things I could do, was make a web page. And it seemed cheesy, yeah, I know. But that was something you could do at home from a hospital bed, and I had the knowledge to do something like that. So later in the day, after composing myself a bit, I finally went ahead and registered a domain and created a website tribute to Dad that is still up today. Yes, this is the Rudy DiBiase memorial page, October 9th, 1951 to December 18th, 2011. Here he is on a riding lawnmower at our family's Adirondacks property. Dad loved our Adirondacks property. He was never more at home than riding on the tractor at the property. We actually had a full-size red farm tractor that for years and years and years he used to ride with a brush hoe behind it and cut. I mean, because their house had 300 acres of land. Maybe there's like 60 around the house that needed to have the grass cut. So, I mean, we'd go up there for 2, 3, 4 days, and he'd spend a day getting the tractor, trying to get it ready to start, and the rest of the time he would just ride it through the fields, cutting the grass. And when I was a kid, I used to just walk behind it, following him. That's what I used to do. And I loved it. I just loved it. In hindsight, probably following a brush hoe wasn't the smartest idea, but I never got hurt, luckily. So this is a little bit of his story. He was born in 1951 to Phyllis and Rudolph. He grew up in Marine Park, Brooklyn. He married Joanne in 1976 and had 2 children. Joey, that's what my family calls me, and my sister Diana. He had a number of jobs. He started off working at Carvel. He went into truck driving. Later on, he was a supermarket manager. He had a video game and vending business. And his last real business was a successful car service company he and a partner ended up selling. So he did all types of things in his life. His spare time, he loved playing poker, both online, and he was a member of a yacht club in Brooklyn called the Midget Squadron Yacht Club. And he used to, when he was healthy, he used to go there every day to just play cards and hang out with the guys there. At one point, we ended up buying a boat. I'll get into that more because that's a great story. He really just loved the yacht club, and it was a big part of his life. And then here, it's about the last years of his life were pretty sad when I got sick, and then his own hospitalizations happened, and he ultimately died from complications of dialysis and severe infections in December 2011. December 18th, 2011. Survived by his children, his wife, his mother, his brother, his sister, and their families. And I'm just going to go through some of the pictures here because the pictures will spur stories. Okay, this is me and Dad on the boat, and there are a few pictures of the boat. But the best boat story I have, it's not a fancy boat, but Dad wanted a boat. Money was pretty good at the time. I was working. I had a good job, so it was fine. We'll buy a boat. He knew someone that was selling it, and I didn't realize just what a whole boats come, how much money you sink into them at the time. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it at this point because it was a good time. So the best story, and I'm sorry I'm not seeing any comments right now. I'll get to them in a few minutes. The best story on the boat was 4th of July. I don't remember the exact year. I would guess it was 2006 or 2007. A few of my friends knew we had the boat, and they said, hey, do you want to go out on the boat and see the fireworks? We were thinking the Macy's Day fireworks, even though that's quite a distance from Brooklyn where the boat is docked. But even if we didn't get all the way there was fireworks all over the area to see, and you can see them great from the ocean. But 4th of July is like amateur hour for boaters, so you have to be really careful when you're out. And Dad was an experienced boater as they go. I mean, he had decent experience. So a bunch of my friends, we all got out there. It was it was already the sun was already about set when we left dock, and we're going at the highest speed the boat will go, making decent time, but we only get as far out, and I know most of you don't know the geography, but we get to let's say the first big bridge, and it's still like 3 or 4 miles to even get close to the Macy's Day fireworks, and we probably weren't going to make it in time. So we hung back, and we saw a fireworks show at the local Brooklyn Cyclones Stadium, which was right off the water in Sheepshead Bay. And it was great. The friends were out. We were all having fun. The weather was nice. All was good. Dad was at the controls of the boat. I took it for a few minutes coming out, but to be honest, I didn't get the greatest thrill from driving the boat. Dad really liked to do it, so it was fine. So we start to head back in, and one of my friends was very nervous because he couldn't swim. And we had life jackets on the boat, of course, like you're supposed to. And he was like, should I wear my life jacket? And like before we left, we're like, no, you don't have to wear your life jacket. If something happens, you go to the life jacket and you get it. But nobody was saying you should be wearing your life jacket. I mean, nobody goes out on their boat wearing their life jacket before trouble happens. Anyway, that should have been a sign. So I'm sitting in the back of the boat, just enjoying the evening. My friends, everybody's talking, everybody's having a good time. Dad is driving the boat, and we're headed back. We're going again at pretty high speed, and I'm looking, and I'm amazed at how close we are to the shore, because I know in the past that every time we've gone out to the, gone out somewhere, Dad tells me, oh, we've got to stay far from the shore because he knows where the sandbars are. And I mean, he has a depth finder and a GPS. So he has all this equipment, and it has like the path you need to follow. And so I don't think anything of it, but I'm like, wow, tonight we're getting a really nice show. I'm surprised where the tide must be high enough or something. We're able to get so close to shore, and we getting closer to shore, and that little red alert in the back of my head starts to go off. I'm like, we're having a problem. This was fun, but we're starting to get to scary close territory. I stand up and I look forward through the window of the boat, and we are aiming at full speed at a jetty of rocks. I mean, it is dark. I mean, it's almost, the only lights are from the boat and some lights on shore. I don't think there was much of a moon, but I could see these rocks and the water breaking on them, and we are headed right for them. So I scream, "Stop the boat!" And like my dad looks at me, like, "Stop the boat!" And he pulls the engines down to 0 throttle, and we are just seconds from hitting these rocks. And we're going over. I'm like, "Dad, the rocks, the rocks!" And he puts us in full reverse, but there's not enough time. The inertia is still pulling us forward, and we hit into these rocks, and we hit in something hard. He shuts the engines off. Now these aren't outboard engines. If they were outboards, we probably could have pulled them up and saved the engines. They were rotors were literally underneath the boat. So as the boat was hitting the rocks, the rotors themselves were being bent and damaged, and God knows what was happening to them. We're half the waves are pushing us onto these rocks. My friends are like, "Oh my God!" The one I was like, "Yes, Everett. Now you should put on. Now you put on your life preserver. It's time. I'm sorry. Yeah, put it on." But we got a couple of sticks that we had on the boat, and we were pushing ourselves off the rocks. And we got off the rocks. Now we don't know. We hit hard. We're not sure if the hull is cracked. We're looking all over. We're looking down in the cabin. Are we taking on water? We don't see any water. Dad's trying to get the engine started. He finally gets it started. But if we bring the throttle up to anything over maybe 5% speed, the whole boat starts shaking. So it ends up that we were going on such minimal power. We have just the most minute power. We were barely able to overcome the tide coming out. What should have taken us maybe 40, 45 minutes to get back to dock took us over 3.5 hours to get in. We ended up getting back to the club in the middle of the night. Now, thankfully, the club people care somewhat, and somebody at the clubhouse, we had the emergency radio. They did stay there until to make sure we made it back in one piece. And after we made it back, I mean, listen, it was scary. It was fun. It was fun to begin with. Then it was scary. And then we all got back and just kind of laughed at it. And I'm like, Dad, what were you doing? There was a line. Why weren't you following the line back? He's like, I am following the line back. And he points to the line. And I'm like, Dad, that's the shoreline. Oh, he was following the shoreline. His eyes were not the greatest. He ended up having cataract surgery not too long after that. But he thought he was following the GPS line back, and he was following the shoreline. I guess had I been up in the passenger seat or just looking forward, we probably could have prevented it. But I was in the back. Somebody else was up front. They didn't know, really what they were doing. So I wasn't their fault. It was just Dad looking at the wrong thing, and definitely could have used an extra pair of eyes looking forward, especially at night. So yeah, it was a rough night. It took a lot longer to get home, but you know what? No one on that boat will ever forget that 4th of July. It will be a story we remember for the rest of our lives. And that's, that's what you get. I mean, yeah, it cost thousands of dollars to fix the boat. I mean, and all the time we were panicking. What if water starts coming in? What if the engine just goes out completely? Because it takes forever for the Coast Guard or somebody to come get you on 4th of July, because everybody who's never been on a boat before tries to go out and tries to do stupid things. And of course, even the experienced sometimes get into trouble. So, yeah, that was my 4th of July story with Dad. It was certainly memorable, and we all loved it. This was my Jeep, but it was a great picture. Dad ended up using it for the background tonight. And I used it a lot of places. I used to drive him around once I got this. My whole life, he always used to drive me around, from a little kid to a teenager. Even as an adult, I felt very safe with him driving in a car. Not as safe in a boat after that, but anytime we went out after that, I made sure I could see what was ahead of us. But driving was always great. Here he is posing for his picture when he was Commodore of his yacht club. Not in the Navy, just a Brooklyn yacht club. This is an old family picture. I think it was my 13th birthday or something. Dad's in the middle. That's my grandfather on his right, who had passed away years before Dad. And That's my great uncle next to my grandfather, who is actually still alive. Yeah, he's in his 90s, I believe. Um, God bless him. Here is a family picture. Uh, Shortly, let's see, 10 to 2000. So I had been out of college almost a year, and I guess I had been working, and this is at the boat club. This is Dad and his mother, my grandmother. Dad on the. We got this little tractor up for the Adirondack property because the big red farm tractor was getting too unreliable, and Dad was happy enough on this little tractor. He was able to just go around and cut the grass he wanted to cut. This is a much older picture from the Adirondack property. That was one of his friends. This is a 6-wheel ATV. This thing, I used to love this. This was like the first off-road vehicle I ever got to drive. I accidentally hit it right into my dad's brand new 1984 Lincoln Town Car. I was driving it as an 8-year-old or something, and I forgot to set the brake, and I got out, and it just kept rolling, and it rolled right into the tail light of his brand new car. This was my sister graduating college, Dad at the boat club again, me and Dad on the boat, and my uncle. In fact, my uncle in the background. This is a younger picture of Dad. More at his boat club. The boat club has a party room. So most of the big family parties, or what else? Like New Year's Eves and stuff, those would all be at this boat club. Boat club. This is Dad. Now this small picture is Dad. This is actually when I was in the hospital. My sister had just brought her dog up from Florida. Her dog's name was Charlie, and Charlie was jumping up on Dad. One of the few pictures taken while I was in the hospital, in the house here. Again, this is back 93, my dad and his father. Another picture of my dad with Charlie dog. You can see the house is a wreck because literally it's just people going to the hospital and coming home from the hospital and going back out. Mail's piling up. I mean, nothing is getting done. Dad and my sister, way back. Dad at the boat club. Me, Dad, and a friend in the pool. Dad at the boat club. Some of my cousins way back in the day. This is the Adirondacks property back in the early 80s. We were having that property done. The Adirondack story, it's a haunted house. That will be its own dedicated stream one day. More of Dad on the mower. Sister's graduation. New Year's Eve at the boat club again. Dad on the mower. I mean, that made him happy. He would just cut the grass. If he could have retired just cutting grass and playing poker, he would have. Um, Mom and Dad, the picture from before, family wedding, all families, family pictures. Me and Dad, obviously when I was still walking. Me, Dad, my sister, and my mom. These are a few weddings. There's a couple of weddings mixed together here. That's the family. Another picture of the boat. Was a Wells Craft, I believe. Yeah, yeah, we were. Yeah, 2900 Express Cruiser. This was the day. Now, with my old job, we would get occasional tickets. The company had a luxury box at Yankee Stadium, and I was really happy one day. I was able to get extra tickets and get Dad down to Yankee Stadium, and we were in the skybox, and in this skybox they used to bring in catered food and all the soda and beers you wanted, and they would decorate the walls and stuff. So that was a good day. Yeah, it's me and him at Yankee Stadium. There was maybe 20 seats 20 seats in front there for all the people who come in the skybox, so they can actually watch the game. If they want to watch it outside, they were great seats at the time. It was a fairly empty day that day. More weddings. My sister with my parents. More family. Dad down in Florida. We were visiting my sister when she was living down there. This was at the top of the Citrus Tower in Claremont, Florida. I don't think the Citrus Tower is there anymore, but it was a tall tower that used to just look over never-ending citrus fields until they turned all the citrus fields into housing. This is the Adirondacks property. This is an old picture with a bunch of cousins, but there is that old red tractor I was talking about. And that's when it was in fairly decent condition. It's family in Arizona. This is Dad. It's the supermarket manager. Boat club again. Adirondacks property again. Boat club friends. Boat club. Young Dad in the Adirondacks, probably before I was born. Okay, now this one is Dad following my cousin. Now, my cousin, it was his first time using a tractor. Now, this isn't the big red tractor. This is another riding lawnmower we had up there before it broke. But my cousin here was his first time cutting the grass, and Dad was following him to make sure he was safe. And it just reminded me of me walking behind Dad all the years I used to do that when he would cut the grass. So I always liked this picture. Yeah, it's my cousin with Dad following behind. I mean, my cousin now is much older, in fact married with a child, so you can just imagine how long ago that was. This has to be about 1973 or 74. I know that because this big barn across the street collapsed not long after. So that's, again, long before I was born. It looks like Dad is bringing a Christmas tree home from the Adirondacks property. Okay, so this is the 80s, the early 80s, and you can see that barn is completely collapsed. The shed is still up. A current picture, both the shed and the barn have completely collapsed. Unfortunately, just from age and not without having somebody living up there to take care of them. They're just gone. Nature has reclaimed them. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Some boat club, another with my dad following my cousin around. Oh, just Adirondack property. Special place in my heart. My dad and my mom and my grandmother and her friends all playing a card game up in the Adirondack house before it was redone. So that's got to be again like 1973, 74, 75 maybe. Dad crossing the road upstate, younger version. One of his hunting trips up there, all Adirondacks. Him and his dad working on that ATV, the living room of the house. We did a log cut. We did a couple of log cuttings up at the Adirondack house, and it paid for most of the renovations. And this doesn't have anybody in it, but it was such a nice picture I took one day. I was up there while Dad was one of his last trips up with his friends, and you can see the shed has already caved in at this point. It's still visible, but this was probably maybe 2005 or so. It's long gone now. But man, that is a beautiful picture. The colors, the fall leaves. I miss that property. Okay, guys, so I will get back to the camera, and God knows if anybody is even left. I'm gonna put my head up for a second while I read the comments. Yeah, so as I figured, probably everyone left, but that's fine. Okay, I'm going back to the comments. I guess I could bring the webcam back up. Commander Ironwolf says he likes spaghetti westerns. Chief Engineer Mr. Miles says just some recording, streaming advice. Look into getting a dynamic microphone. It reduces background noise like barking dogs to a significant amount. I will look into that, Mr. Miles. I actually have a Blue Yeti, which everybody told me was like the go-to microphone for beginning YouTubers. It was supposed to have pretty decent sound quality. I'm kind of afraid it picks up too many noises, but yes, I am definitely looking into getting a better microphone. The downside is you have to make sure it's always in front of your face, like anti-tracker. Well, I mean, it's literally right here. It's pretty close by. Of course, you can't see it because it looks like it's part of the background, but The microphone is pretty close to my face right now. Um, Thomas Potts says, "Do you know there's a car behind you?" Yes, Thomas. This was my 2002 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, the first and only new car I ever purchased in my life. I later leased a brand new car, but this was the only one I purchased. And I love that Jeep. And to this day, I still run Carfax reports to see where it is and make sure it's still running. And I'm proud to say it's still on the road. It's in Pennsylvania. It's still actively registered. There was a registration renewal done just a couple of months ago, so I have every reason to believe that car is still ticking. I loved it, but the warranty was up, and it was, frankly, I was just making decent money. I didn't want to have to deal with all the warranty issues I knew I would have to deal with, mechanical issues. Even though it's a very strong car, there are issues. I was having problems with little things, so I eventually traded it in for something else. But when I think back, this was my favorite car. I went from, my first car was an 86 Jeep Cherokee to a 96 Jeep Grand Cherokee to a 2002 Grand Cherokee, and then the last car I drove, I had leased, was a 2008 QX56, which was a really nice and really big SUV. I loved having all that room inside because even in that Jeep, my head was less than an inch from the roof. But with the QX56, man, that was luxury. That was, I could get in that truck and I felt like a normal sized person in probably any other SUV. Oh, and it was amazing to drive. I'm only sad that I only got to drive it for a couple of years before I got sick. Not even. In fact, for those who are looking for blackmail material, if you look back on the videos of this channel, you will find a video called Joe's Jeep, or Joe's Last Jeep Ride, something like that. And it's one of my friends who recorded me driving my Jeep, the Jeep in that picture, to the Infinity dealer for the last time to turn it in. And I literally am tearing up as we drive the 10 minutes from my house to the dealer, and she's recording me, and I get all emotional. I should play that sometime on a stream because it that'll be another show. I mean, my Jeeps are a whole other thing. Derek said my father had to do dialysis as well. I was actually on dialysis as well too when I was in the coma, but I don't remember it because with luck my kidneys came back before I woke up. Derek said my father had a raging infection in his right leg and had to have it amputated. Before he went for the operation, he said to tell Maddle, I love her. Maddle is my 17-year-old daughter. Aw. That's sweet. Oh, Drawing for the Fun of It came by. Hello, hello. I'm sure you've gone by now, but I saw your video come out earlier right before I went live. I'm going to check it out once I'm done with this. Captain Redneck was here. He looks like a calm Klingon dad. He was very calm. He was, unless there were a few things, if you got him really, really upset, then he wasn't calm. There was a whole thing with a car dealer who really pissed him off, and he ended up punching his fist through the wall of a car dealership. If you've ever seen The Office where Andy punches the wall, like that literally happened. But that was very, very rare. 99.9% of the time, he was the nicest guy in the world. And I was blessed. I was blessed with both my parents, but I was definitely blessed. Boat acronym is bust out another 1,000. Absolutely right, Captain Redneck. In fact, that's what I was trying to think of, but I forgot it. Right, you don't want the boat. You want a friend who has a boat. And that's true. Derek says you only have 2 happy days with a boat. The day you buy it and the day you sell it. Well, Derek, I couldn't even sell that boat. When the time came, nobody wanted it. I had to end up donating it, and even that took some getting for them to actually come up and pick up the boat for a donation. And last I saw, the boat hadn't sold, even from this place that was had taken it for a donation. So unfortunately, the boat got into disrepair after I got sick and Dad got sick. It had been up on land for a while. A raccoon got into it. So yeah, I mean, I'm not totally surprised it didn't sell, but yeah, it didn't sell. Hi, Sassy. Yes, it's okay, baby. Captain Redneck has to run. Work calls. Take care, Captain Redneck. Lore says, hey, bruh. Lore Reloaded. It's good to see you. I think you're probably gone. I think everybody's probably gone. He says, hey, brother. I can't stay, but I'm sorry for your loss. Lost my parents within the last 5 years. It's not something you get over. Yeah, I've heard you talk about that, Lore, and my heart always goes out to you when I hear that. I'm sorry about that, buddy. Derek says, nice picture, but he prefers Land Rovers over Jeeps. British bias. Well, you know, more Jeeps for me, Derek. More Jeeps for me. Derek was the red tractor of Massey Ferguson. I don't know. I don't know if that's a joke or an actual brand name. I don't know the brand name of the tractor. But it was a serious farm tractor. Derek says, see you later, Captain Redneck. Brian McFarlane, Heidi ho, everybody. Hi, Brian. I don't know if you're still here. Thomas Potts says, I'm here. Brian McFarlane says, I love the beach, but the fall colors are great. Those fall colors in that picture are beautiful. Where in Pennsylvania is that Jeep? Oh, I forgot the town name. It's not a big city. It's not like Pittsburgh or something. Philadelphia. I'll have to look it up next time, Thomas. I'll let you know. So I guess that'll be it for tonight. Thank you guys for letting me share at least a couple stories about my dad. Um, you know, we'll talk more. There's still some more stories to be said, but I wanted to touch base on him, with him, because this day was important. Thank you, Thomas, for sticking around. I will see you later, too. For those who are interested, Doomcock has his roundtable. If you are a Doomcock patron, I believe you have to be a patron. His roundtable is starting in a little less than an hour on his Discord channel. I will try to be there, at least in the beginning. I'll probably fall asleep before I get called on. But if you're a Doomcock fan, be ready to check that out. Take care, everyone. Qapla. It means success. And I probably should have timed that better.